The cheering was thunderous. Dozens of inflatable boats floated on the murky surface as spectators lined the banks, waving flags and recording the spectacle. But then the wind shifted. The stench rolled over the crowd like a physical blow-up. Nauseating wave of rot, chemicals, and decay. Eyes watered. Stomachs turned. And then came the screams. One by one, the racers began abandoning their boats in a frenzy. Some leapt into the water, only to realize the liquid below was far worse than the air above. People gagged and cried, struggling through the thick brown sludge to reach the shore. From my vantage point on the hill, I heard sirens in the distance, drawing closer. On her makeshift podium, Karen Pettin stood paralyzed. Her clipboard hung limply at her side. Her mouth opened and closed in disbelief. This was supposed to be her crowning moment. Instead, it would become her undoing. It began 3 months earlier when Karen called an emergency HOA meeting. As president of the Maple Ridge Homeowners Association, she relished her role like a medieval queen. I'd lived in the neighborhood for 15 years and had watched her evolution from a friendly neighbor to an egotistical power hoarder. That evening, she swept into the community center in a navy blazer, an oversized HOA pin glinting on her lapel. She rolled in a large presentation, board plastered with photos and architectural mock-ups. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced with smug pride, "I've discovered an untapped resource that will put Maple Ridge on the map." With dramatic flair, she unveiled her masterpiece, aerial images of what she called Lake Serenity, a body of water on the eastern edge of our subdivision. "This gorgeous lake has been ignored for far too long. I propose we host the first annual Maple Ridge Regatta." The room buzzed with excitement except for me. My stomach dropped the moment I recognized the location. As a civil engineer with 2 decades of experience in county infrastructure, I knew exactly what Karen had found, and it was anything but serene. I raised my hand. "Karen, that's not a lake. It's a livestock waste retention pond. It's owned by the county and used to collect runoff from nearby cattle operations." The room went silent. Karen's smile tightened. "David, I'm sure you're mistaken. This is clearly a neglected recreational water feature. The county has simply let it fall into disrepair." She clicked to the next slide, a photoshopped image of sailboats and smiling families gliding across sparkling water. "We can restore it, reclaim it. Times have changed. This is now a residential area. We have every right to utilize this beautiful space." I tried again. "There are biohazard signs posted all around the fence for a reason. That water isn't safe. It's literally filled with animal waste and chemical runoff." She waved a hand dismissively. "Fear-mongering. Those signs are ancient. Let's not let outdated warnings hold us back." To my shock, several board members nodded in agreement. Margaret Holloway, the treasurer, chimed in. "Think of the property values. A lakeside community sounds so much better than a subdivision with a drainage pond." I pulled out my phone and found the county records. "It's officially listed as Agricultural Waste Pond Number 7, managed by the Environmental Health Department." Karen raised her chin. "Then we'll reclassify it. I'm sure it's just a matter of paperwork. In the meantime, let's begin preparations. All in favor?" Before I could respond, hands shot up. The motion passed, 12-3. Over the next few weeks, Karen launched into the regatta planning with military-level determination. She formed committees for decorations, refreshments, marketing, and most dangerously, lake beautification. One Saturday morning, I drove by and saw a crowd of neighbors in gloves and boots tearing down the chain-link fence. Karen stood at the front with bolt cutters in hand. "Today," she declared, "we reclaim our lake." Biohazard signs were ripped down and tossed into a rented dumpster. When someone hesitated, Karen snapped, "Do you want to live in mediocrity or make history?" I stayed back, recording it all on my phone. Karen's transformation of the waste pond into her personal paradise accelerated. Using OA funds, she hired landscapers to plant flower beds and string decorative lighting along the perimeter. A wooden dock was built, jutting 10 feet over the water. When the crew voiced safety concerns, she threatened legal action for breach. of contract until they finished the job and left without another word. Meanwhile, I wasn't standing idle. I filed complaints with the county. I contacted the health department and even reached out to the state environmental agency. But their responses were painfully slow. An inspector will be assigned, they said. We're looking into it. They promised. Karen didn't slow down. She had a photographer capture the pond from flattering angles, heavily filtered, of course. Flyers appeared around town advertising the first annual Maple Ridge Regatta at beautiful Lake Serenity. She even partnered with a boat rental company to provide inflatable racers and kayaks 3 days before the event. I received recent water quality test results from a contact in the county lab. The findings were horrifying. E. coli levels were over 40 times the safe limit. The water was saturated with ammonia, nitrates, phosphates, veterinary antibiotics, and growth hormones. It was a toxic brew, dangerous on every level. That evening, Karen convened one last HOA meeting to finalize race logistics. She stood at the podium with her usual overconfidence, listing times for the press, the drone photographer, and the boat lineup. I stood and held up the lab results. Karen, this event cannot happen. This pond is toxic. If anyone enters that water, they could get seriously ill. She didn't even look at the papers. David, your jealousy is becoming embarrassing. Just because you didn't think of this idea? Jealousy? I interrupted. This water could cause gastrointestinal illness, skin burns, or worse. Margaret looked uneasy. Karen said her nephew tested it. He's in community college. My mouth dropped. Your nephew isn't a certified lab, Karen. These tests require professional analysis, not backyard science. She slammed her gavel. Motion to proceed with the regatta as planned, all in favor. 8 hands rose, 5 stayed down. But it was still enough. That night, I sent every document I had to the press, the county, and environmental watchdog groups. If no one else would stop her, I would. Race day dawned bright and clear. The sky was blue, the sun was high, and Karen was in full command. By 9 a.m., the makeshift parking lot overflowed with cars. Food trucks lined the street, a local band set up on a portable stage, and a crowd began to gather around the lake. Karen stood proudly at the center in a captain's hat, blowing her whistle and directing volunteers like a general on a battlefield. From my position on the hill overlooking the pond, I watched it all unfold, phone in hand, ready to record. Families arrived with their kids, chatting excitedly. The boat rental employees looked more and more nervous as they inflated the racing vessels and glanced uneasily at the water. One of them kept checking his phone, clearly waiting for something, or someone to intervene. At 10:15 a.m., the Channel 8 news van pulled into the lot. Karen practically ran to greet them, her smile stretched wide. This is a landmark day for Maple Ridge, she declared to the camera. We've transformed an abandoned lake into a vibrant centerpiece of our community. That's when, too, more vehicles arrived, a county health department van and a sheriff's patrol car. The health inspector, a stern woman in a gray blazer, stepped out with a clipboard in hand. Her face shifted from curious to horrified within seconds of surveying the scene. She began taking photos, talking rapidly into her phone. The sheriff's deputy joined her as they walked toward the pond, examining the now-removed fencing and missing warning signs. Still, Karen pressed on. At exactly 11 a.m., she blew her whistle to start the race. 20 inflatable boats pushed off the dock into the brown water. Laughter echoed across the pond until it didn't. Less than 2 minutes in, a teenage boy began gagging. Others followed, coughing and holding their noses as the pungent stench intensified. The boats stirred up the sludge below, releasing trapped gases, methane, hydrogen sulfide that turned the air into a choking cloud. A woman screamed as her paddle struck something foul just below the surface. Another boat deflated after hitting submerged debris. In panic, people began jumping overboard, unaware they were plunging into liquid manure. Screams replaced cheers as racers flailed through the water, retching and crying. The crowd on shore gasped in horror. Parents snatched their children and fled. The news cameras rolled as emergency calls flooded 911. Sirens blared in the distance. And Karen? She stood frozen on her podium, whistle clenched in her fist, watching her historic event unravel. In real time, as chaos spread across the pond, the Channel 8 reporter thrust a microphone toward Karen. "Ma'am, can you explain what's happening here? Is it true this is a livestock waste pond?" Karen looked dazed. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. The health inspector stormed up. "Who authorized public access to this site? This is a restricted county facility. Who removed the barriers?" Karen stumbled backward. I thought it was a lake. A community resource? Lake Serenity. The inspector's voice was flat. "This is agricultural waste pond number 7. You've exposed dozens of people to biohazards. This is now a public health emergency."